Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.
Welcome. It's Game Over Montreal. I'm here with Marc Dumont and Mitch Brown from Elite Prospects. Mitch, how are you?
Not too bad. That was pretty exciting, wasn't it? How are we feeling?
I'm feeling like zero trades.
What everything was hyped up to be the most exciting draft in history. Let's be honest, it wasn't that exciting, but some interesting picks here. That's what we're gonna get at.
This is true. Before we get too deep into it, of course, we got to tell you about the show. Mitch is going to be here with us. Marc and I are going to go back and forth what the Habs did, what the Habs didn't do, the path ahead, of course, looking at the prospects overall in the system heading into the second day of the draft tomorrow. But before we do any of that, we got to talk about our sponsor, Sports Interaction. Sports Interaction, well, the hockey season may be over. Not much to bet on now. I mean, I guess, I don't know if they do bets on the second round of the playoffs. I'll have to check that out. Or second round of the draft, sorry. But they've got the MLB season is in full swing here. We're not too far, I guess, from football. I mean, CFL's there. You can bet on the CFL.
And soccer's about to... Arsenal just bought a very important player. That's all we need to know now. So go bet on Arsenal. Second last year, they're going to be first this year.
Or you could take an easy bet and bet on Bayern to win again.
Well, really, you could take a safe bet, and that would be picking Reinbacher. Oh, no, sorry, that's later. Sorry.
Well, we'll get into that later. But yeah, you can catch up with Sports Interaction online. You can use the QR code in this video. You can just scan it. It's down in the bottom corner near Marc. Or you can check out their website, sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. All sorts of deals. All sorts of cool games like Minute Madness. And also, right off the hop, we got to tell you, on June 30th, we're putting out a special Game Over edition for Pride. We have all of our people in SDPN in the LGBTQ plus community came together to create a special 3-panel show discussing various topics concerning that community in sports, in hockey, in life. It's really good. A lot of passion went into it.
Come join us. It'll be fun.
Yeah, it'll be really
a lot
fun.
of fun.
It was fun to record it, and I think people will really enjoy it. We've got Maud there, we've got Lauren there, Kaya there, Liz Knox, a lot
of people that are smarter than me. That's not saying much, but it's true.
Plus, we got our intrepid community manager, Robert Malloy, is in there as well.
Best person ever.
Got to support Robert. But yeah, so that's all we have to talk about for pimping stuff right now. But also, make sure you like the stream. I mean, it's what we're doing.
Fair enough.
Anyway, make sure you like the stream. Make sure you subscribe to SDPN. Let's have some fun here. Yes, I am bald. For those who missed our draft lottery stream, I think that was the first time anyone saw outside like Marc and my personal family. I just haven't seen very many people recently. Just been busy with the kids. But yeah, I made the decision. Time to shave it off. Getting too thin, so I don't want to look.
It's like a war. Eventually, if you lose the positioning on the beachhead, you just got to retreat, man. You just got to give up some land, recoup, and restart. Hey, before we get going, and we're gonna hear from Mitch, who is amazing Elite Prospects. Honestly, one of my favorite analysts, tells it how it is, and historically has been pretty darn accurate. Before we get going, shout out to everyone in the chat. We have people from Australia. Let us know where you're from, but it means so much to us that you're here watching with us. If you're a Habs fan, we want to hear from you. Complain or excitement. And you're allowed to have your own opinion. If you want to whine and opine, this is the time to do it. If you're excited, we'll talk about Reinbacher's, positive aspects of his game, because I think there's been maybe a little bit of overcorrection in his case, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think where most Habs fans are right now is that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Mitch, what your feelings are, but I think that most Habs fans just feel like the vibe has been killed in taking a defenseman this high when you could have taken Michkov. I think that there's lots of arguments that you could make for Reinbacher, and we will go through those. But I think losing those 2 picks in the high end of this draft, 2 tank years where it's pretty miserable to sit through, especially once Caulfield got hurt this year, and there wasn't much to really get excited about in the lineup. Coming out of those 2 tank years after the rough rookie year Slafkovsky had, and now taking a defenseman in the top 5, it doesn't feel like the rebuild is off to a scorching start. It feels kind of mid. And I think that's where a lot of the frustration is right now. Now, we'll get into the details of that, but Mitch, do you feel like that's kind of the feeling right now? Is it deserved?
Yeah, it's absolutely deserved. Let's separate these a little bit. So the first thing is that players can be good picks, good decisions, or whatever, and fans can also not be excited by it. David Reinbacher could very well be an acceptable, a good, a strong pick and turn out to be that, but he can also be a relatively boring one. Like, let's be honest here. Matvei Michkov, more exciting player. He's going to be more exciting in the NHL. He would have been more exciting for this team. Zach Benson, the same thing. Ryan Leonard, you show a Habs fan one clip of Ryan Leonard, and he's going to be their favorite player.
Fan favorite.
And so,
yeah.
and so there's a lot of it's justified to be a little bit down, especially because you had 31, 37. All you hear is how deep this draft is. And now you're getting a guy who, and Alex Newhook is very talented, but he's a different type of reclamation project than Kirby Dach. With Dach, you're betting on size, skill, instincts. And with Newhook, you're hoping that you can teach him the more nuances and details of the game a little bit more than you had to with Dach. So it's, honestly, I think it's both, and I think that's perfectly acceptable.
The chat has mentioned several times. I think Sebastian Jackson said you look like a sexier version of Michael Bunting, but you're being compared to Bunting in the chat. I don't know if that's is that a bad thing, or I don't know. Like, he goes hard to the net.
So I got this twice from two separate people, and then we did a live stream on EP, and then there was a poll. Who do I look more like, Connor Bedard's brother or Michael Bunting? And obviously, Michael Bunting ran away with that one. And as a big Michael Bunting fan, I can accept it. It's just as soon as he does something stupid, I'm just kind of sit there and I think, man, at least I don't do that.
Yeah,
I'm not an NHL player. I don't make millions of dollars, but at least I don't do that in the playoffs.
This is true. Reed Dennis in the chat says, I feel like if Michkov had not existed, people would be more than okay with Reinbacher. I think that's
a really good call.
It's 100% true. Yeah. I think that that is the big issue, but Michkov does exist. That's kind of the biggest thing. And Kay, 22 Paper Dolls in the chat says, 2 years of tanking. This just sucks. And I think this is where I am right now. I don't know about you, Mark. I don't know about you, bitch. But
Did you just say you don't know about me, bitch?
I said you, Mitch.
Oh, okay. Bitch. Like, okay, yeah.
You know what? I will still respond to it. Like, you can just sneak it in there, and it's like, it's all good. Like, I'm down with it.
Well, I'll try not to throw out any gendered insults, but I think our generation, bitch was kind of
the nomenclature has changed at this point. It's a revolving euphemism. Yes,
it's good for everyone.
I'm often a bitch. I'll be
same all the time, especially on Twitter. Cicerone's, why is Andrew bald? Cicerone's, I made the decision.
He was losing the beat.
Yeah, I was losing the battle, so I just
retreat.
I pulled the plug.
Before we get into it again, we have Canberra just called out from Australia. We've got people from Texas, Buffalo, obviously Canada. So again, super appreciative for all you guys tuning in. Here's my take on Michkov. Okay. There are few opportunities in the NHL to add star power. And as we've seen, and you know this, Mitch, going back to, let's say, the last 20 Stanley Cup winning teams, they all had fantastic star power, except for the Blues. They were the outlier. And funny enough, most GMs wanted to emulate them. But in my opinion, the opportunities for the Montreal Canadiens to get these stars are few and far between, and I feel like that's the biggest issue. I think Reinbacher is going to develop into a very good player.
Yep.
But you missed on an opportunity to add an elite presence to your lineup, and that, to me, even though they're trying to take the safe route, that's riskier than any other route in the NHL, and it's a sin for a general manager. Now, the only reason I think there's so much disappointment is that the Canadiens went into last year's draft with the first overall, 5th overall this year, 31, 37. And they come out of it okay. Slavkovsky, still lots of potential. Newhook, let's be honest, third liner might move up to a second line at some point. And Reinbacher, who probably a good top 4, offense doesn't project to a top pairing guy. I think that's the reason Canadiens fans are so underwhelmed, is that the opportunity was there and they didn't take it.
Yeah, and you look back at their previous track record, even before this management group, it's not super exciting. I mean, obviously you had Mayu, which was a bit of an interesting pick because of the off-ice stuff, because of the incident in Sweden, and the fact that he's still hasn't been cleared, as far as we know, to play in the NHL. So that is going to linger over the organization no matter what, even though they chose to sign him, but still. Caden Gooley wasn't a super glamorous pick at the time. There were a lot of people that were down on that. Yes, Barry Kotkaniemi was a controversial pick, and I think a lot of that is just building into this. This is a team that has been, other than one playoff run, kind of stuck in the middle a little bit. Yeah. And regardless of the management group, there hasn't appeared to be a ton of change other than, say, what happened in the second round of 2022.
Yeah, and I think this is like the big thing for this rebuild, right? We've been through now 2 years of full-on tanking hockey, and
Of suckitude. I remember at one point someone called it suckitude in our chat, and that's like the term I want to use.
for sure,
Heavy
but like,
suckitude.
let's be real here. If not for COVID rules, this is actually like 5 years of being bad for the Canadiens. It would have been
Yeah.
5 straight years of missing the playoffs
Wish I had a button.
outside of the COVID
Yeah.
rules. So they should have a very deep prospect cupboard. They do have that.
They do, but
is
it
the
lacks.
time-
They do.
Other than Lane Hudson, Mitch, is
Yeah.
there a player that projects to be elite in your opinion in the Montreal Canadiens system?
No, definitely not.
And the thing is, even if Lane Hudson hits,
Hudson's not a guarantee.
he's not a guarantee, but like let's say Lane Hudson hits,
Yep.
they still need a star quality forward. So to me, that means right now we're going from a situation where the Canadiens maybe take Michkov and you can start moving up the standings a little bit next season, maybe appease Marty St. Louis and Nick Suzuki and wanting to get some more wins in there and not worry too much about your pick dropping down in the next draft or two, because you know you have Michkov coming in 3 years or so, and he's going to be a star. He's going to be your star. It's pretty much a guarantee. Now, they still need that elite forward, which means next year you've got, Marty St. Louis, who wants to start to win.
Oh my
things
God,
together.
he hated this year.
So
he hated
much.
this year with a passion.
Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield, they definitely
I
want to
know
start
for a
winning.
fact that Nick Suzuki is sick of losing, and this is one of the arguments a lot of people say, "Who cares?" Blah blah blah. No, you actually do have to manage players, your star players, and if your captain's sick of losing, it's a really bad sign.
Yeah, so like all of that means you're going to have that battle against what you should actually logically do managerially, which is tank again next year to try to get that stuff forward.
Celebrini,
So,
here we
like,
go. Here we go.
It creates a friction just in terms of what priorities are in the organization that hasn't really existed in the last 2 years. I think that's a difficult thing to overcome. And unless you're going to bow to the idea of needing to win sooner, then you're rushing the rebuild, acquiring guys like Newhook, hoping you can turn them into...
And let's be honest, by the time the Canadiens are ready to be competitive, Newhook is no longer 24. We all hope there's a huge development in his case. There's not much in his numbers to suggest that'll be the case, but hey, have faith in the development team. But by the time the Canadiens are ready to be competitive, Newhook is out of his prime.
Or at the end of it.
Yeah.
But like, I think this is the big thing that's got a lot of fans depressed. It's like, this has laid out the roadmap in a way that either
It reminds them of Bergevin, let's be perfectly honest.
Well, it's like it starts moving up the standings, and the rebuild is going to be not championship caliber, or you're in for another couple of years probably of tanking, and that's also kind of hard to accept. How about you, Mitch? What are you thinking?
I mean, honestly, I just keep going back to the idea of they probably just see it differently. The reality of it is they probably just think Reinbacher is a better player.
Yeah.
For them, the best player available is David Reinbacher. And I don't know if that's I don't know if they have the right perspective. I personally disagree with it, but in their eyes, it's probably, I mean, it's certainly, otherwise they wouldn't have done it, a sound decision. And I mean, we can get into the details of what Reinbacher is and what he isn't. But at the end of the day, for every time teams have reached on guys and hit, like say for every Sider, there's a Philip Broberg. For every Brady Tkachuk, there's the guy who went one spot over him, Jesperi Kotkaniemi. And then you can just keep going down the list. Like look at the Bruins 2015 draft. That was 2015, right? Michael Rasmussen, Barrett Hayton, Victor Soderstrom. Like you can just keep going down the list of guys the teams reached on and they missed. Of course, that's not to say that Reinbacher is going to follow the same fate, but I think any discussion that starts with, oh, we should just wait and see, it is a wrong one, an incorrect one.
Absolutely. I agree. Okay, I have a question for you. So there's two defensemen that actually, I think Elite Prospects said that Reinbacher was the best defenseman in the draft, right? Was that your official position for...
That was our official stance, yes.
Okay. What do you think the discrepancy is between him and Gulyayev and Simashev, the two Russian? I know Simashev went right away. Gulyayev went 31. I heard Gulyayev, which I'm definitely destroying his name, could be the next Lane Hudson, and Simashev might have more potential than Reinbacher. Now, here's the thing. There's not a lot of production that we've seen from Simashev. What's your call on that, on those three defensemen?
So the difficulty in general with taking a defenseman in this draft is that the difference between the two top guys, Reinbacher and Shemashev, is very small in terms of ultimate upside than the guys who are going to go in the late first, your Tanner Melendiks, your Mikhail Gulyaevs, and your other defensemen who have yet to be picked. It's very slim. And that little difference makes all the difference in the world when it comes to projecting prospects and so on. But theoretically, you could have kept 31, 37th, swung on two defensemen, picked Michkov, and ended up in roughly the same spot in terms of your outcome of getting a top four defenseman. Yeah. Like, I think it's important to understand that Reinbacher, very good at what he does. He's incredibly mobile. He's a very aggressive, proactive on-puck defender. The type of guy who you think, like you watch Caden Gooley defend, Reinbacher is better. He's more instinctive. He gets on guys earlier. He closes space sooner. He has great timing.
Great positioning, yeah.
All of that is going to translate into very clearly a middle pairing defenseman at minimum. To get to that next step, he's going to have to improve the offensive game. He already activates, he joins the play a lot, so he's going to fit into what Martin St. Louis does, but it's more about learning how to deceive and play with more pace, make his decisions faster, also learn how to draw pressure towards him. And then that's where you're going to end up with a top pairing defenseman. That just seems like, let's be honest here, that seems like a lot. Like that's my opinion is that's just a lot, especially when you're picking 5th overall. Like if you're picking a guy that high, you're hoping that the development curve isn't going to be that lengthy.
I'm gonna and I like to play devil's advocate, even though I agree with everything you said. First of all, we're gonna get to something that Kent Hughes said, which is very, very confusing and disturbing and really, really disappointing. However,
that Kent Hughes said, or this is Arpin said?
Yeah, but he said Kent Hughes. If you scroll up, apparently there's a quote there. I think it was Trizek or a Trinka. They're same person. Put it up there. Last year there wasn't a lot of talk about. Well, maybe in the drafting circles, but overall the consensus was it's a forward year, but Jiricek and Nemec might end up being the best players from that draft. Personally, I had Cooley and those guys, 1, 2, 3 pretty tight. Do we sometimes overrate offensive talent in these drafts?
Well, I think the numbers suggest that we often overrate defensive talent.
Damn it! Yeah. Damn it!
Like, I think it's far less common for top 10 defensemen to become the best defenseman from the draft than for forwards. And part of that is just a numbers game. But the reality of it is, like, taking a defenseman has an inherent risk attached to it that I don't think NHL teams often acknowledge. And I like, sure, they're the decision makers. And so there is some sort of bias that goes into that. But yeah, it's...
Where did you have Reinbacher, by the way?
I think we ranked him 9th. So, like, he was
not
in
a
this
huge reach, but it's that discrepancy in talent, right?
It's the context, right? You had Matvei Michkov, who's a first overall caliber talent. Zach Benson would have gone first overall last year. Ryan Leonard is a terror. Like,
like you said, he would have been the Milan Lucic when he was good for those 20 minutes there of Montreal.
When he scored all the empty net goals.
Yeah, exactly. When he went full David Clarkson there. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Now, if we go up here, and I'm going to have to find it.
There was a comment saying that the Golden Knights don't have any elite forwards. But, I mean, Mark Stone exists, and he put up over a point per game in the playoffs with a back that doesn't function.
What I love about them is that they clearly saw against the Habs, if they had a legitimate first-line center, they probably would have done better. The Habs ran them out of the barn there, let's be honest.
I feel like this is
And they went out and they got him. So that's what I appreciate about Vegas. They're getting aggressive. I think what we're seeing now, draft is still important, but a lot of teams will develop those players for you and give them, Ottawa and Arizona, for pennies on the dollar, right? So I feel like we're losing a little bit of the value of the draft, but obviously you have to hit on your top 5s, right? Would you qualify the Canadiens? How would you qualify Kent Hughes' drafts so far? Because we have to keep in mind, we have guys like Owen Beck, we have guys like Lane Hudson, even Vincent Rohrer, who obviously is going to be playing in Europe. Those were very good picks beyond the first round, and unfortunately, they're picking 69th tomorrow, which is nice, but there's still a potential that they find a few more steals there. How would you characterize Hughes' approach to the draft so far?
So value agnostic, this is an A, because you got a top 10 talent. However, we don't exist in that world because they spent a top 5 pick on a guy who is more in the 6 to 10 range.
I'm really trying to find a positive angle here, Mitch. Okay.
Okay.
I can get a positive angle. I got it. Okay. Is there anybody that you can think of that would be a better match for Lane Hudson to be a top pair defenseman than David Reinbacher.
Oh, that's it. He's gonna. Yeah,
I have a
does need
different
guy like
question.
him. Yeah.
Would you rather have Lane Hudson feeding Matvey Michkov on the power play in the offensive zone, or David Reinbacher?
Yes. But answer my question. Because obviously Lane Hudson is a very high potential player,
but he does need a pairing. The pairing is going to be huge.
Yeah, the person that he plays with is going to do a lot to insulate him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can Reinbacher be the perfect insulation for Lane Hudson that creates like one of the best top pairings in the league?
Yeah, he could get there. The offense will have to improve because he's going to have to be able to create space for Lane Hudson because Hudson's skating, right? He's going to need his margin for error.
Shea Weber and say you do it.
Yeah. His
poor
margin
Victor
for error
Mete,
is millimeters. He's going to need a Reinbacher to open things up for him a little bit, right?
Yeah, but Could is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence, eh?
Well, I mean, all drafts are Could, right? But
exactly. We're trying to be uncertain here, right? Like everything that is being said right now, we could just light it all on fire in a year because it could just be so completely wrong, and that's just the business. Now, of course, he could be a great fit with Lane Hudson. I have no doubt about that. And something that I think doesn't get enough discussion on Reinbacher is his transition game. Like, he can really break the puck out. We saw it especially at the World Juniors in the second half. He can draw pressure, pass through it. He can cut away from it. Short, long-range passing skill, look cross ice, some in-motion skill, It's not super consistent, but you wouldn't expect it to be. Yeah, for sure. And so, he has all the tools to be a very strong supporting defenseman with another player who can drive play a little bit more. And, of course, are in the offensive zone, because I think Reinbacher at minimum is going to be a good shutdown guy who can also break the puck out like your average number 2, number 3 defenseman. So there's a lot of ways for him to fit into a lineup. There's a lot of versatility, and he has so many different ways that he can improve and become a great NHL player, and can certainly live up to this draft status as well.
Yeah.
There you go. We were positive.
We're going to look at a quote from Kent Hughes. Before I do, I want to re-up and say that on June 30th, we have our Game Over Pride show that's coming out. 3 panels discussing topics very near and dear to the hearts of people in SDPN's organization that fall into the LGBTQ plus community, and we'd really appreciate it if you check that out. It's really good. I helped record it, and Robert Malloy, our amazing community manager, edited everything together. It's going to be really fun, so please check that out. But here's a quote from Kent Hughes.
This is a sad, disappointing quote. And this is... Listen,
I'm going to disagree with you on this one for a couple of reasons.
I've been arguing with Andrew for a long time now that everyone sees Hughes as this progressive guy. He's very old school. He's a lot closer to Marc Bergevin than a lot of people assume. And I know that's going to scare people, but he's not crazy progressive as a lot of people. He's old school. I'm just going to put it that way.
Okay, so the quote from Kent Hughes was about Reinbacher.
I hate this quote.
He was very high on our list. If he were a left shot defenseman, we might have cooled on him a bit, but we don't have as much depth on the right side.
Drafting for need.
On the one hand, yes, drafting for need is dumb.
Stupid, yes.
However, left-handed defensemen are just less valuable anyway.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Teams they have huge boners for right-handed defensemen. They always do.
Yeah.
So I don't, yes, organizationally, there is a need to get somebody on the right side. They don't have much. But I think just by virtue of handedness, yes, if he was a left shot defenseman, he probably wouldn't have been as highly ranked in the draft in the first place. Mm-hmm. So from that perspective, I think that it just makes logical sense. But drafting for need is also dumb.
Yeah, if you could sim the next 2 seasons, sure. I think that would be if
you could just skip through it.
To me, Kate, what's your call on this? Because we often talk about drafting for need in the NHL, and it's obviously different from NFL. This guy's going in your lineup. NBA, he might be your starting point guard. There must be still some value for filling out your organizational needs, though, right, Mitch?
Well, okay, if you're drafting for left wingers, then it's a little weird. But if you're filling out your roster with centers and right shot defensemen, which carry more asset value around the league, then it's not terrible. I think that my own perspective, because it's my own perspective, and I'm, in my head with my own perspective, I think Matvey Michkov would have been a better angle to take here. But from their perspective, 6'2" defenseman, mobile, physical, pro ready. That's the guy who's going to carry a ton of value. And the fact that he's a right shot, we know those guys go for a little bit more because, it's a little bit rare. And as a right shot, I'm now realizing my poor career choices. I wish I learned how to skate when I was younger. So and NHL size, I'd be 6'2" as well. Not that I'm anywhere near that, but these guys all get their heights inflated anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah,
David
I would be.
Dernay was easily 5'5", and this guy was like 5'8", which is, our tiny height.
The,
Yeah.
the one I go back to all the time is JG Pajot is listed as 5'11" by the NHL. I met him in Vegas in like 2015. The year, I think it was 2015, the year Price won the Hart. I went to the NHL Awards that year, and he's the same height as me. I'm 5'7", 5'7 and a half on a good day.
That's when people are short, when they're like, yeah, I'm actually
they add the halves and the
I'm
quarters.
5'7" and 9/16 is my height. Okay, where does Reinbacher fit in the overall, let's say, power ranking? Not power rankings, just projections or potential rankings of the Montreal Canadiens system. Like, he's got to be top 3, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's a consequence of the situation. Who is the Montreal Canadiens' #1 defenseman of the future?
Lane Hudson, by far. And then I'd actually put David Engstrom, Adam Engstrom, not too far behind him.
Ahead of Reinbacher?
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't go that far.
I'm super high on Engstrom.
Okay. So I need to ask, where would you have picked David Reinbacher then if you think Adam Engstrom is better?
I wouldn't have picked Reinbacher. I'm sorry. That's the thing, is you have the rare chance to add an elite explosive that fills your need and is also the best player available. I'm sorry, but I would have been much happier, and I think actually statistically it would have been a better draft if you would have gone with Michkov and Gulyayev, right? Like, that to me is you're adding 2 guys that have that high-end potential, right? I don't think I would have picked Reinbacher top 10.
Okay. So I think, just to push back on this a little bit, I think Reinbacher instantly becomes their best defensive prospect. And I say this as someone who was very high on Lane Hudson. Don't look at the 2022 Elite Prospects Draft Guide, or do and then message me. You can do whatever you want. It'll be funny anyway. So I think he instantly becomes their best defensive prospect. It's reasonably close, but Reinbacher is a guy who feasibly could play in the NHL next season, be okay, and you're going to have another season of him minimum before he can come over. He's going to marinate. He's going to improve. And the Montreal Canadiens are going to be able to work with him on video. So something that the Detroit Red Wings did with Mo Seider, which is interesting, is they did video breakdown sessions with him. So they were like, okay, when you do this play, we want you to then jump into this pocket of space after to get open for the return pass, and that'll improve your offensive game. And so they just kept doing that every single week, and then he just keeps getting better and better and better and better. And this is an opportunity for Montreal this extra year to do that same sort of thing. From afar, you give him quick hitting advice. Hopefully he can digest it all and immediately translate it to his game. So it's his development path to the NHL is very clear. They can get a ton of value. I mean, just if he can retain information and is just like a hard worker, they're going to make him into a #2 for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, he has the tool base, he has the confidence. We've seen so much progression from him throughout the season. So, I mean, and I guess what I'm trying to get at here more or less is that when he steps into Martin St. Louis' system, it's already going to be there because the development team is going to have the same plays in mind that they're going to want to teach him to do in Switzerland as he's going to have to do with the Canadiens. The same activation reads, the same give and go passing, the same east-west playmaking. So, yeah, I mean, I'm talking myself into it the more that I communicate, as I'm sure everyone can tell. But certainly, it's a pick that will really lean heavily on their, as we know, or at least we're hoping to be, great development system.
Now, before we go on, listen, Antoine Chevalier, écoute, I'm going to go ahead and assume you've never watched 1 second of Adam Engstrom. If you could tell me what team he plays for, I'll go ahead and argue with you. But just saying someone doesn't know what they're talking about, that's what people, when they have no argument, say. So keep it classy. If you have a retort, give it to me, buddy. We'll talk. But don't act like a little child, please. That's for you, Antoine Chevalier.
I was trying to figure out which side.
I'm pretty sure it's me, mais comme sérieux, là, agis comme un adulte, mon ami. All right, buddy?
All right, let's
calm
things
down. Now, here's the thing with Adam Engstrom, is he actually had a top 5 under 18, or under 19, I guess, because he turned 19, season in the history of the SHL. And his playoffs is ranking 1 or 2. So, very, very good prospect that you should not sleep on. Let's put it that way.
A little. Guess who the two recent young defensemen who played for Rogla too? You have Mo Seider and William Verlinder. William Verlinder, I can't remember which one it is.
Yeah.
I'm confused. I'm too tired. My brain is mush. I'm sorry. But the guy that Detroit picked, who is very toolsy and plays in the same system, they get that program gets a lot out of their defensemen. You know, they consistently improve. They show a lot of stuff. So Adam Engstrom is certainly a very interesting player to watch moving forward.
Yeah, and he'll be playing top minutes next year. Now let's talk about that. Reinbacher has the option to stay. Obviously, he signed a 1-year extension with Cloton, but the NLA doesn't hold people to their contracts. It's not like the Swiss or
KHL.
SHL, where you either have to make it or you don't. They get first right of your refusal. So he could stay in Cloton. He wants to finish his business degree, which I actually love that idea. I know people don't care about it, but that shows maturity to me. Where would you have him though? Because they can put him in the AHL since he was drafted out of Russia, and as you mentioned, NHL. Where do you think, is he better off going the Simon Nemec route?
I think the best situation for him would be to go to Sweden, personally. I think it's a proven track record. He's going to get big minutes. We know that type of player can have success in Sweden and then immediately translate to the professional game already. I think that would be the ideal development road for me at this point. And hey, if it turns out he's too good for that level, then he got a lot of experience messing around and having some fun with the puck. So, you know, it's going to work out no matter what.
Yeah, and his prime minutes too, right? That's the other part too. Like, we often worry about the development of players in Europe, but if you look at a team like Frölunda, they've almost hit on all the guys that are supposed to come to the NHL. So I think we have to have a little more faith in. I know the revamped development squad is good, but the European clubs are also doing great things with these guys, and he's going to get those prime minutes. So that's the advantage of staying. And you know what? Familiarity is important at that age. We have to remember, very young as well. So shoving them all the way across the sea, you get away from your food, you don't get to see your mom as often. People underestimate how that impacts European players coming at 18 years old.
For sure. I want to talk, there's a couple comments here. I know that people are upset and everything, but I think what you got to remember that just because they didn't take Michkov doesn't make Reinbacher a bad player.
No.
Right? And I think there's definitely going to be some people, because it's a big fan base, they get upset and they're going to go after Reinbacher online or whatever and shit on him.
Don't do that.
Honestly, like, you're going to like this player, right?
Yeah.
What you're not going to like is seeing Michkov put up 120 point season.
Right?
You know, that's going to be rough, and unfortunately probably won't be able to use that Philadelphia Flyers draft video anymore where they were like, Caulfield, and got Cam York, but where are you going?
I'm just deleting this.
Okay. More angry people.
Yeah,
we've got to mod the chat here a little bit. But I think when Reinbacher takes the ice in a Montreal Canadiens jersey, I mean, he's going to make a lot of fans out of.
Don't forget, last year people switched from Shane Wright to loving Slavkov. Like, and I had to
go for sure. That happened within 30 seconds.
30 seconds, right? I don't think the people are angry at Reinbacher per se. I think they're just really upset at a missed opportunity.
Yeah. And I think that's completely fair.
It absolutely is. Now, the wait-and-see approach is a little more positive now, right, Mitch? What is your view of the Canadiens' revamped development squad? We're talking about Adam Nicholas. Also, they have a science department, a science tech department with sports science, which is great. Adam Douglas. How much faith do you put into their whole change where they're actually... I know they put in a development team. That's fun. But do you think that that is one of the reasons that Hughes is so confident in his picks?
I'm going to assume yes, because if it isn't, then that is terrible. And I'm also going to assume that they're great at their jobs because I have no way of knowing if they aren't. So I think if you're picking Reinbacher here, you really believe in them. And same with, like, just look at their draft record under Kent Hughes. Like, they take some risks on their picks skill-wise. They believe that they can improve hockey sense, skating, puck handling. They think they can improve everything because otherwise you wouldn't pick those guys. You'd pick lower upside guys instead.
Yeah, 100%.
King of the North,
Here's a good question.
He's not going to buy out his contract in Russia, though. That's he could.
I don't know though. Did you see his comments today?
Oh, did he?
Oh, he talked about he wants to be in the NHL as soon as possible.
Well, listen, I've never feared that because Russian players have come over since the illegal invasion of Ukraine, and Michkov has always said it's his dream. But I seriously doubt that he's committed also to playing for SK St. Petersburg as well. Yeah. So, but you know who his coach said he needs to play like? Martin St. Louis. And that was interesting. I saw that in a translated article, and I think it would have been interesting. But let's not talk about who they missed. Your opinion, how long is Reinbacher? I know it's tough to judge this, but how long do you think like a legitimate estimate to when he could be an impact player in the NHL?
An impact player, 2 years.
Impact player, yeah.
2 years?
Yeah.
That's not too bad.
That's very good.
For a
I think-
defenseman, that's not bad.
A year ahead of Gooley, right? A year ahead of Gooley stepping in and being decent enough in the NHL. I think that's probably reasonable. Also, Matthew Michkov, who? Never heard of him. We're Reinbacher now.
I think for some like context, and we're leaning on you here, Mitch. Let's combine the last 2 drafts.
Okay.
If you're picking between Reinbacher, now I've lost the name again, the Columbus one who dominated the AHL this year, Juracek, and Nemec, order them 1, 2, 3.
Juracek, Reinbacher, Nemec. So
Okay,
Juracek is the most
that's
intelligent.
not bad.
Oh,
Juracek is the most intelligent of them, but his skating still has to come a little bit. Reinbacher is the most well-rounded of them, and Nemec is the biggest development project of them. He'll play, but he's still relatively raw and very moldable. So, yeah, I think Reinbacher's just a little bit ahead of Nemec, but a little bit below Juracek.
But is he better than Luke Hughes?
I don't believe I'm allowed to talk about Luke Hughes in public anymore.
People get upset, eh? People get very angry. And here's the other part: is it's fine to disagree with people. Just don't get angry on the internet. Don't send death threats on the internet. You know, that's pushing it a little bit. We're all having fun here. Hey, don't forget to like the chat and subscribe as well, because I never say that, so I said it this time. I got it.
We got it in there. Yeah. Man, I'm kind of at a loss for words because of the lack. Like last year, they could kind of make that weird off the board pick with Slavkovsky, which I guess it's not.
It wasn't off the board in the sense that there was no
consensus, I guess. Yeah, but like they had the picks in the later first round and early second round that they could kind of go for talent first.
Yeah.
And try to go for skill, and now they didn't get that because of Newhook. I mean, what's your take on Newhook? There's one, Mitch, because I see a guy who, like, yes, there is potential there, but when a guy is 22 turning 23, the developmental pathway is like walkable instead of like a long run, if you know what I mean. So it's like, it's not the same situation as Kirby Dach. People keep on making that comparison to Kirby Dach. First of all, Dach was younger, bigger, higher draft capital.
More pedigree, yeah.
Like he's just a significantly better player. And also, as much as like the picks that they gave up were worth more for Dach because it was a higher first round pick, but they got that pick for Romanov, who was worth like nothing.
Amazing trade. Just that part of the trade, amazing. Yeah.
I mean, I know that they got that first round pick for Sherratt, but they had that pick for a year essentially. So it's no longer Sherratt. It's not like the Romanov thing where it's like you're trading and trading. It's like almost a 3-way trade. So it's kind of a tough.
I would still rate last year, and I don't know if you agree with me. I think last year's draft, even with the question marks about Slavkovsky, was one of the best drafts in Canadiens history. And I know that might sound like a hyperbole. Obviously, not as good as 2007, because then you had Subban, Pacioretty, and McDonough. Because you never pick a top line center and your top pairing like that's winger. But what would you give their draft last year overall? Let's say on like a scale of A to F. I think that's the lowest grade. I saw it a lot.
It was an F, and I was just about to say it was an F. No.
It was an A.
It was an A. I mean, it was
F's
an A.
in the chat for the
Slavkovsky. Slavkovsky, you picked a first overall caliber talent in that draft. First overall, it's fine. Machar was real talent. Beck could play in the NHL as soon as next year. Hudson is a grand slam. Vincenz Rohr is a little tank. Adam Engstrom
smart player, smart player too.
And then further down, you got
Tohini was a good value pick.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of value in that, and on top of that, it's good process. You're picking a variety of positions, a variety of different archetypes who all have upside. You're not picking guys to be fourth liners. You're picking or Davidson is probably the guy who might be the lowest upside, but there's still a chance that he can hit because he can really rip the puck. He can rip the puck way better than the average fourth line NHL player. So in terms of that, and then what was the previous question? What do I make about Newhook? Was that the first thing?
Oh yeah. The actual potential, like the possibility, because hey, it's not bad to be a third liner, but how legitimate do you think are when people say, oh, he's going to be a second liner? Like, what are the odds on that?
Yeah, so it's tough. So the first thing, what is Newhook good at? He can clearly skate at a top 6 level in the NHL.
Puck battles, he's really good off the boards. Really good.
He's really good off the boards. Absolutely. He can fly.
Mm-hmm.
In open ice, 2-3 crossovers, he can separate from a lot of NHL defensemen. He's a very strong shooter. He can shoot in stride, he can shoot under sticks, he can shoot under pressure. He's a good rush shooter, especially. So you see him fly down the middle, fly down the wing, push off one way, then fire it back against the other way. He can then shoot off the pass as well. You see a lot of one-timers, catch and release, wristers, and zone. It's just, I guess the thing is well, he does have positive ideas as a playmaker. So like he can deceive a little bit in open ice. He can change pace and try to open a lane. It's just that he's not consistently great at getting the inside. He's not consistently great at getting open, and he's not consistently good at using space. And so one of those things you would feel a lot more positive about. If you just had one of those issues, you'd feel a lot more positive about him stepping up and becoming a 2C. But he adds all three of them. You add in a little bit of a lack of precision, and then it becomes, you're really banking on the development, as I've said like 85,000 times tonight, and will continue to say it probably until I die. It might be my last words. You're really banking on the development, and you're really banking on the fact that you have a very well-structured offensive team that can get value out of players like Newhook, who don't necessarily have to be offensive geniuses to manufacture offense, because they know that there's always going to be a teammate open in the slot. They know that they can take a few risks here or there instead of having to shoot immediately. So I wouldn't put the odds as exceptionally high. I think he has the tools to do it, no doubt. But next year is the year that he's going to tell us if he can do it. If he can't next year, he's probably not going to make it to that level. He's still going to be a great NHL player in a third line role. Maybe you can move him to the wing to play him in sort of a mid-6 up and down kind of situation. So he's a very frustrating player, to put it mildly. I was watching him this morning. I was like, oh boy.
Yeah. But hey, man, the development squad, Martin St. Louis, we never know. They might sprinkle some magic dust. Okay, you know who I see him, and we'll move on. I see him doing great things with Kirby Dach, because one of the things that Newhook struggles with is finding open time and space, right? Off the rush, he's fine.
Kirby Dach makes space.
But Kirby Dach makes space, right? So I know Caulfield's small too, but if you Caulfield, Dach, Newhook could be an interesting line. Now, there's a little bit of, and it's fair enough. Hey, by the way, shout out. There's amazing people watching from everywhere. Shout out to all of you. A lot of people they said they want to go to bed, but they can't because the stream's so good. Let's talk a little bit about, I was so engaged with what the Habs did. Let's talk a little bit about the other Canadian teams real quick.
Before we do, because I noticed there was a couple comments here saying that the SDP boy said this was a post-draft show for all the teams. That wasn't actually our plan, so there's some miscommunication there. This is a Montreal-based and Montreal-focused show, but we'll touch on other teams. You guys can say in the chat what teams you want us to touch on. I know Arizona, people were mentioning as well. We definitely got to talk about them a little bit. But
do we?
I think there was a question here from Cicerone, who I believe I have muted on Twitter because he's kind of a jerk. But he says, will rounds 3 to 7 change your mind about the draft? I think here's the thing.
It could.
The combined value of rounds 3 to 7 is worth less than 1/20th of a 5th overall pick. So I think the odds of that happening, unless Andrew Cristall falls to the 3rd round and they take him 69th, that'd be a decent pick.
That'd be a great pick.
But I think it's more than just the pick that was disappointing about this draft. We talked about lack of trades off the start of the show. The fact that the Canadiens still haven't found a way to unload Dvorak, they still have to worry about Joel Edmondson, they still have to worry about David Savard a couple years from now, they still have to worry about Yoel Armia, Mike Hoffman, all these players that they have to move off. This is consistently an issue that they have to get around to actually get this rebuild off the ground. And it's just kind of tough to see this as a positive situation coming out of the first round when they didn't take the best player available. They drafted for need, which they said they weren't going to do.
That's the part that really
and they haven't
stop saying it's going to be the best player available.
They lost 2 picks for a player that has some upside but isn't, Kirby Dach level. Mm-hmm. And the picks they have left aren't great. They haven't moved out any contract. It's just a kind of a rough situation. So I think it's very unlikely that the second day of the draft changes people's opinions.
If they had an early second, Okay, let's do some quick fire then. Vancouver Canucks, a defenseman town, and obviously
Willander?
Willander, very good defenseman. A lot of people had him rated maybe a little later. What do you think about that pick real quick?
So this is another one that you're really banking on upside. Not a big scorer, but he has great offensive tools because of his mobility, his willingness to jump into the play. And man, he can really defend down low, mere footwork, angle guys into the board, slam them off the puck, and so on. And then he's going to BU is an interesting little Montreal Canadiens connection right there, because there's a real chance that he ends up playing with Lane Hudson this season. So yeah,
that'd be great
fine
for Hudson, eh? That would be so good for him to actually have a. Oh, I won't want to. Yeah, I don't want to insult their program, but Hudson needs a bit of support there. Let's be honest. Like, yeah,
Benson should have been their guy there, though. I will stand by that. Benson should have been the guy at 11. Local boy. He's a killer. Amazing.
How did he get to
playmaker.
13? The best playmaker, and he might be the best defensive forward somehow. Like, how did he fall to 13? That's crazy.
Yeah, being 5'10" or 5'9" and 3/4. Sorry, I should have.
Yeah,
you got to keep those quarters on there.
Yeah, he's almost taller than Connor Bedell. That's the other fun part. I was looking at like 5'10". Okay, so we talked
Let's talk about Arizona, because I don't think
Simashev, right?
It seems like
they go?
Simashev is like super
like
divisive. I've seen some people say that like it actually wasn't a reach, and they think he's going to be a great player. And like you have some models that have him as like a 6% chance of being an NHLer or lower. And then they go out and take Boo, who also seems like quite a huge reach in the first round. Like where
is that is Boo?
I think it's Boot.
Is it
Boot? Okay, Boot.
Oh,
I thought
was hoping
they
it was
said
like
Boo on the broadcast. But yeah, where do you see Arizona's draft? Because it seems like I thought if any team was going to take Michkov, it made sense for Arizona because they don't have to pay him for 3 years. So I mean, they did draft 2 more Russians, but like, is this a team that knows what it's doing, or are they just
a giant money laundering scheme?
Well, did you see how poorly their pants were fitted? This is definitely a team that doesn't know what they're doing. Come on, guys, get a tailor. Jesus Christ.
That's why I don't know what I'm doing. My pants never fit.
Like what the hell was that? Anyway, so I think Simashev at 6 is a pretty it's the Reinbacher pick. Again, like it is justifiable. Really? Is it the best one that you could have made? No. This guy is a textbook skater. And he's 6'4". Like, it doesn't make sense that a guy with limbs that length can bend them in those ways and do it that smoothly. It's just all like, you got to put all the pieces together. And with Boot, it's high intelligence, high skill level, very awkward to watch because he's a little. He's very upright. The skating isn't great. He can be easily knocked off the puck because he doesn't have that super deep center of gravity. So these are two big swings, and that might not be in the best developmental situation from a hockey perspective. So, I mean, they're drafted by Arizona. Second off, Russia isn't exactly known for producing talent like this. In these archetypes, especially from, you're picking Simashev because you're like, this guy can be a 3-zone offensive defenseman. It's like, well, how many offensive defensemen has Russia produced lately? So, I mean, I love when teams
Sergachev.
Yeah.
But enough. I mean, he explicitly went the OHL route because, and I quote, he wanted to play offense.
That's true.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, the Russians don't like their defensemen to pinch. Like, even I remember back in when Markov was making Olympic teams, they were like, yeah, you stay at home, Markov.
Yeah, well...
It was like Markov and Gonchar paired together and going into the offensive zone.
That's why I kind of doubt the NHL coming out of, let's say, VHL, MHL. Or even KHL, it's a little skewed. The chat wants to hear about Minnesota and Nashville. Let's go with Nashville. I really like Matthew Wood at 15th overall. What do you think about that one?
Yeah, Matthew Wood is just so interesting to watch. First thing, skating. That's the first thing that stands out. He's skating in quicksand, but he's incredible at drawing pressure and then beating it through passing plays and so on. Like, he's the master of getting guys on him, then making the quick little play to get to another teammate. He can really rip it off the pass. His skating or his shot improved throughout the season. He was productive this year, got nasty hands, creative. It's a bet on skating, but like, even if it improves just a tiny little bit, every other part of his game is going to get better. And every little increment, his game gets better and better and better. It gives him more and more and more options. And so, yeah, I really like that. And then the Tanner Melendek one, I think it's a tiny little bit early, but one of the best skaters in the draft, explosive, physical. This kid wants to be a difference maker. And I think that's going to be a big difference for, like, when you compare other players who have some struggles with their decision-making with the puck. If you want to be that guy, you're going to soak up information easier. You're going to translate it to the game easier. I think Melendek is a real nice swing, especially for Nashville. It has a lot of success with defensemen.
And let's be honest, skating the bad skating is no longer the death knell that it used to be in the NHL. And also, it reminds me,
especially if you're smart, right? Like looking at a guy like Tyler Toffoli, who is a terrible skater.
he's like half cut Konami, half Subban, but slower. Like,
well, if you watch him from a dead stop, get the puck and start, he's like Scooby Doo, where it's like, nothing's happening, and then he starts going a little bit, but he's so damn smart that it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. And now I do want to point out, at one point, when the Senators drafted Mark Stone 6th in the 6th round, I went on this huge tirade about how he will never make the NHL, and it's a dumb pick, and the Senators should be ashamed. They should not even invite him to the development camp. So wow, I've been wrong about this. Yeah, like I went all in on this one there. You know, I'm like, this guy, because I watched, and he still can't skate, but he's effective in the NHL. All right, moving on to, and we will get to Minnesota, because that was a very Minnesota pick of them, in my opinion. Number 16. He went a little early there. Our friend Samuel Hanzek. Would you have picked him at 16?
Yeah, I think it's a fine pick. I mean, this guy, big, super fluid, really toolsy, can absolutely rip the puck. He's a decent worker, good motor. So you're hoping that he can put all those pieces together into a, let's say, put them into the right order, learn to streamline his decision making, play with a little bit more pace. I mean, clear top 6 upside, and of course, he's going to play in the NHL with those tools.
Yeah, Marc getting called out here says, "What a strong opinion for a 6th rounder." I mean,
exactly. Exactly.
Oh man, I'm pretty sure I went on TSN 1200 and I was like, undraft, forfeit the pick. Yeah. Moving on, we have the Winnipeg Jets. This is a guy that actually at one point they were talking about the Canadiens were really interested in him. I don't know if there's much that stands out from his game, but Colby Barlow, what do you think about that pick?
Yeah, that's a real solid one. He's going to play. I mean, he's a contortionist shooter. Like this guy, you leave a puck in space and he'll move his whole body, twist it around, and a laser beam will go into the top corner. Really impressive the way he can rip the puck. Everything checks out with him character-wise, off ice. Everyone loves this dude. Great defensive worker. Not much of a playmaker, but I think the passing skill is just good enough to allow him to score 30 in the NHL.
Am I misremembering the scouting reports, or is Barlow like pretty weak defensively?
No, he's good. He's good.
Oh, he's good. Okay.
Hard worker, engaged, tries.
Okay.
I mean, he can of course tighten it up, but yeah, the potential to be a great defensive player is there.
I must be thinking of something else, but I was kind of hoping that he was terrible defensively, because a really strong offensive player who doesn't give a shit about defense is the Winnipeg Jets model.
Oh yeah, that is not Barlow. Oh boy.
Maybe he could just stop giving a shit about defense now. Just become a Jet. Become Kyle Connor. Become Mark Scheifele.
To ask him this. I challenge you, please stop caring about defense.
If I ever get a chance to talk to him, I'm 100% asking that question. Be like, online with Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor, have you realized that you can't give a shit about defense anymore?
Is he from Saskatchewan? Because it feels like a Saskatchewan name. And you know what? It's important to have a Saskatchewan player in your roster. Almost every Stanley Cup winner has had one. There's a strong correlation.
Every single one except for like last year.
Yeah. Let's get to Minnesota. It was Charlie Stramel. Am I saying that correctly?
Bramel, I think, is what he goes for.
Pick. Very local pick to a certain extent. Obviously, he's going to play for he's playing for the Badgers. What do you think about that pick at Minnesota? A little early, right?
Yeah, early. He's very annoying. He's physical.
Oh.
He likes to get in people's way. He's pretty nasty to play against. Not convinced about the skating, not convinced about the skill level, but I think he's a reasonably intelligent player. And so there's always a chance, especially because he was in the worst system in college hockey. He was injured for a lot of last season. So there's a chance that there's more upside than what we've seen so far. I personally wouldn't have done it, but yeah, Minnesota's smart. And I'm just a dude on the internet, so good for them.
Fair enough. And we're, by the way, for people that are joining us, we talked a lot about Reinbacher. We're going through a couple teams now. We'll get back to the Habs very shortly. There's one more Canadian team, right? That we're Vancouver.
Buffalo. I know we already talked about.
We didn't talk about the Leafs picking a dude who everyone thought was going in the third.
I'll be honest. I've been pretty underwhelmed by Toronto's couple last drafts, and even before that, when they're going for overage players, which there's actually value there, but.
I completely disagree. I think Toronto, everything that I've heard and seen so far this summer is the correct decision. And I think they should keep doing it.
As a lifelong Leafs fan.
Sign Ryan Reeves. I think it's a great idea, Brad. Mm-hmm. Give him 5 years.
But, okay, so he's rated, I checked, between 70 to 100 in all the rankings. Why did the Leafs reach for Cohen? Because, it's a cool name. It's a hockey name, Easton Cohen. But
Oh yeah, he was born to do this.
right?
Yes.
Why would you think them? Is it because we've heard that they want to beef up, they want to get tougher? Do you think that's kind of the reason that they went for a guy like that, or
Well, they wouldn't have picked a 5'10" guy with skating as a bit of a
is
hole
he?
in
Is
his
he
game.
5'10"? Oh, I thought he was bigger.
No,
See, I don't even know
It
enough.
wasn't the size; it was the playoffs that they
He had a point per game. in the
highlighted,
playoffs.
right?
He-
He had
he-
a
he
great
was-
playoffs.
He was great in the playoffs, and also he's an insane worker.
Yeah.
Great motor, fearless to the point where you are concerned for his own detriment. He's got some of that. When Brendan Gallagher first came into the NHL, and they were like, "Hey, maybe you should stop getting hit every single game and running into people at full speed. You'll never make
Nope.
it to 30." Cowan is kind of that guy who just kind of
I like
runs
that.
around, cuts to the inside fearlessly. I think he, in terms of just intelligence, how he sees the game, how he lets plays develop, when he offloads the puck, how he gets open, very clearly a first round thinker. It's just the skill level isn't quite at that level. There's a lot of uncertainty in his projection. And of course, you're basing this pretty heavily on the second half that he had and how he performed down the stretch. I'm a big fan of him. I personally wish we ranked him higher at elite prospects. But yeah, this was a surprise. And I guess part of it is they don't, when's their next pick? They had their guy. They couldn't trade back, it seemed like. So they picked him anyway. And I kind of like when teams do that. So I got to say, I like it, even though I acknowledge the fact that I wouldn't have done it myself.
I like that. He's finding some positive. Who do you think won the first round? And I know it's so ridiculous that we try to do this.
No, Chicago, obviously.
Yeah,
Chicago's picks were and it pains me to say it, but damn, that was a good draft.
Bedard and more.
Very good. Yeah.
Okay, San Jose, I guess, is another one because they got
Yeah.
Musty real late
Quentin
in that
Musty.
first.
One of the most talented guys available, right? Let's be perfectly honest. I guess more like around his skill level. I know there's been some, I don't know it for sure, but I've heard off-ice issues. In terms of talent, he was like a top 10-ish guy, right, in this draft?
Cleaned a lot of stuff up this year, off ice as well. Everything, yeah, cleaned a lot.
And I don't
of
want
stuff
to
up.
talk about it because I just don't know, but that was one of the reasons he was falling, apparently.
It's nothing it's nothing unusual. It's nothing bad. It's just like
Being a dumb
guy is
kid,
competitive and disagrees with people about how hockey ought to be played. It's not like he's doing bad things. He's just a dude with a bit of a temper. Great skill level, improved a lot defensively this season. Work rate improved, and in terms of talent, he's top 10 puck skills. And the fact that he's 6'2" and boom, real exciting player.
Paper Doll saying, "Oh, Michael Bunting thinks the Leafs made a good pick."
Hey, listen, the Leafs said they're probably not going to sign Michael Bunting, so maybe he would have an accident.
Yeah, I'm on my way out, guys. Come on, be nice to me.
He's
Where
going to Pittsburgh.
Where
Let's
does
be real.
Okay, there's one guy that I thought would have been gone by, or no, maybe around now, but Cristal's one of the most, or Crystal?
Cristal. I think it's
Cristal, let's get fancy. Are you shocked that he hasn't been drafted yet?
No, I would have been shocked if he went in the first round after everything's been happening the last few months.
Okay.
But yes, on the Cristal topic, I feel like I should be drinking some tea. So he's very, some of the best hands in the draft, highly creative. Few players can put, he feathers that puck through the tiniest of little openings. Incredible skill level, but the reality is he has more junior scoring games than NHL scoring games. So a lot of very low pace cuts to the inside, a lot of gaining the zone and then just stopping, like not establishing body position or properly cutting back or trying to hit the early teammate or whatever. Just a lot of stopping and waiting and then getting stripped. Like just a lot of very junior style plays, a lot of soft plays with the puck. He's one of those weird guys who I think it's impossible to ignore his production, but even people who are very high on other smaller high skill guys watch him and are like, you know what, there's a real chance that he just never gets close to playing in the NHL because of the way that he plays at this point. So he's a really interesting swing. Personally, I think Grayson Sachin out of the Seattle Thunderbirds is a higher upside, more certain prospect. We had him ranked 13th at EP. And there's a real chance that he's not going until the third round. And
it goes to show that a team like Seattle, I know that he wasn't playing like a starring role, but when you have that much talent, it might have, and I know they lost to Quebec, but in my opinion, that was one of the best junior teams ever. Almost on par with London 05 and Halifax under Drouin and McKinnon. It's hard to shine when you're playing behind 5 or 6 guys that are amongst the best in the league, and he still looked quite good. So to me, that was one of the most encouraging things in his case.
Yeah, super dynamic. Really curious to see where he goes, and insanely tough. He's 150 pounds, but no one can get him off the puck.
I like that. He's a Raphael Hervé Pinard, or almost the Xavier Simoneau of. I still think he's got. No, let's not talk about Simoneau. We're pushing. Okay, let's go back to Reinbacher real quick. You said 2 years. What do you think? Let's take Lane Hudson out of the picture. We're talking about the guys that are there now: Gooley, Harris, Jacky, Barron, and I'm forgetting the fifth rookie. Yeah, whatever. Kovacevic. Oh yeah, my guy Johnny. Let's take
the most underrated of the group.
By far, actually Harris might be it. But who do you think he would mesh best with in the current crop of rookies?
In
Hudson.
No, I took Hudson out.
Hudson list. I think Gooley probably. I really like the potential of that one, just to like kill everyone who comes across the blue line and
right?
Like, immediately make the next breakout pass. Mm-hmm. Offensively might be kind of interesting, but I think Reinbacher shows some playmaking, and they both like to activate down the weak side a little bit. And so Montreal likes to bring their third forward up high in the zone, get the puck out to their guys. So I think that pair could have a real good dynamic. And plus, I just want to see the chaos unfold. Like, can you imagine what the other team must be thinking when Reinbacher and Gooley come over the boards? They're like, oh my God, this is going to be a lot of man. Don't look at shot share. Don't look at the shot share. But otherwise, it's a nightmare.
All right.
Yeah, there was I know we talked about Chris Dahl being a slow thinker and Gulkin for the win. Is that
it's with Barron, and that's something that we see from Barron a lot. When he has an extra second, he panics.
I think this is the difference. I think Barron has like a slow uptick once he first gets the puck.
Yeah,
it's like he needs a second to decide what to do, but after that, I think he's fine.
Yeah, it's almost if he's not relying on his instincts. But once the brain starts going, that's a bit.
He needs to just stop thinking and play.
I like King of the North suggestion here, Harris Reinbacher, but because Harris is that guy that could cover and is also good in transition, also good in puck retrieval, and he's very, very smart. That's
people need to playmaker too.
Okay, in your opinion, let's talk about those four defensemen there. We'll throw away Reinbacher, and Kovacevic, maybe 5. How do you rank them right now in terms of their overall potential, where they get? So we're talking about Gooley, Harris, Jacky, and obviously Barron, and you can throw Kovacevic in there, but he's 20. He's turning 27.
Gooley clearly number 1.
Still,
I think that is
above Reinbacher.
Oh, no, I didn't know. Okay, the parameters.
I threw him out though. I threw him out. Yeah.
Oh, did you? I thought you didn't. I thought you just threw.
No, I did throw him out. Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Like next year.
Never mind. Just the roster players.
Yeah.
Okay, Gooley definitely number 1. I think Harris has shown a lot in the NHL in kind of this sneaky way. Like he has a little bit of everything. He's pretty smart, and I think if you get him in the right position, he's going to really excel. And on top of that, like he's just so easy to root for. So I think Harris fits into that.
Yeah.
And then it gets kind of interesting because with Barron definitely has more raw upside because of the mobility than Arbor Jacky. But Jacky is going to be a real solid player, probably bottom pairing guy. He can shoot it. He has more offense, not necessarily in terms of like point production, but in terms of making reads that continue the flow of the game than we've seen from him so far. So I'd go Jacky and then Barron. But I'm
a fucking weapon.
He's got a heavy shot.
Yeah.
Heavy shot. And before he got injured, and this is what I know. Like people got really pushed back on this, but he fought too often, and you saw as his fights went up and his body deteriorated, Jacky actually had great underlying numbers to start the season. They were some of the best. Now he wasn't facing top competition, but the moment the shoulder started to separate, like his numbers just absolutely cratered. So if he focuses less on fights, I'm not saying like go steal Zach Cassian's soul if you want. Like that's amazing and it's very important, but if he can maybe tone down the fighting a little bit, and I think that'll be the case this year because he doesn't have as much to prove. And the Habs have to go tell him, like, hey, buddy, like your job doesn't depend on you. It's way too much for a kid his age to be fighting that much. But I'm with you. I think this guy can be a very solid third pairing guy, almost in the Radko Gudas vein. But they're different type of players, but they will hold value, as being a tough guy.
I mean, I think they're pretty similar players, honestly.
Yeah.
Well, Jacky and Gudas, because
I think Jacky actually has a higher offensive potential when you look at his production.
In terms of goal scoring,
yeah, absolutely. Reinbacher, do you put him? Let's say he comes in the league. Do you think? I don't know much about his power play time in Cloton. I heard
you don't watch Cloton that much.
In my NLA, I was talking to Swochatel though. I mean, he knows a lot about them. Getting a little bit more information, but is he a guy that could quarterback a power play? Because that's obviously an issue with the Montreal Canadiens.
I'm going to say no, because I think you don't really want a defenseman at this stage quarterback in the power play in the NHL unless they're particularly
Smart.
great. So I think no, he can play first power play. He can be a guy there who moves the puck, but you're going to have to teach him a little bit more of the advanced side of the playmaking game first. He's going to have to really. We talked about this in Game Over in the first half of the season when Montreal had that power play where everyone would just pass the puck way too soon, and then
Chris
everyone would
Weidman just
form the puck
constantly
carrier.
passed the puck. Constantly passed the puck.
No pressure drawing or whatever. He needs to learn how to do that. And honestly, like I put the odds of him learning how to do that pretty high. It's just a matter of if he can get it to the top power play NHL level.
I think eventually we're running a little long, so we're probably going to wrap up soonish.
Yeah, I would say
okay.
so. I need to
First
sleep.
of all, like and subscribe if you can. I'm going to ask you something that I know people hate answering, and I hate answering this. Give me an NHL comp for Reinbacher.
Skills wise,
where's
not
the end
not
button for
potential.
this?
Because it's the worst, right? You're putting so much pressure, but no,
Where's the
style
end
of play,
button?
not necessarily, but just his actual style of play, just so people can get maybe a little more familiar. Let's say, his offensive instincts and his defensive coverage. Who would you liken him to in the NHL?
He's a smaller Mo Sider. Yeah, stylistically, it's the same kind of thing.
like that.
It's the play killing, the making good quick passes on the breakout through opponents, the activation, the willingness to try and experiment to do stuff even if it doesn't always work. Maybe you get a little bit of Matthias Ekholm in his game, not as shot happy as Matthias Ekholm is, but a little bit of that style of defense, where he's a little bit more passive off the rush, but can really get in on guys at the blue line, stop plays, and then quickly throw the puck back out into the neutral zone for a teammate to skate up. So yeah, probably those two guys. And I'm never coming back on the show ever again because you asked me this question. So
Way to go.
yeah, it was nice
No,
knowing
and
you.
it's the worst. It's the worst possible thing that you could ever do. And with the Montreal Canadiens, at one point I was writing, they're like, what you need to do is write a whole article about comparisons for a place. And I was like, absolutely not. Like,
The only good comparable that ever happened was when the Leafs drafted Tyler Biggs, and they always try to like overestimate how great a player can be, and they're like, comparable for Tyler Biggs, Colby Armstrong, and it was like,
Good for your okay.
I mean, that was shooting for the stars, though. Even
That was actually still
it was still shooting.
Well, no,
for
but the
stars.
reason, and I'm sure you agree here, Mitch, the reason we don't like comparisons, every year there's 4 Kopitars. If the guy's tall, he's Pronger.
Well, yeah,
if
he's
he's big, he's Lucic.
Reinbacher is over 6 foot, so he's the next Chris Pronger.
He is Chris Pronger. If he was shorter, he would have been Scott Niedermayer. Who should we be looking for steals in round 2, 3, and beyond right now?
Okay, well, the first name, Grayson Sachin, look for him. That dude's going to be great. He's so much fun to watch. Bo Akey, very interesting. The smoothest rush play killer in the draft. Just, lots of defensemen, they kind of like reach in, wiggle the stick around a little bit, swipe at the puck. He's one reach, one poke. He's got the puck, and he's off to the races. Ethan Gauthier, that dude's a tank, absorbs contact, sets picks for his teammates, creates lots of space. We see some open eye skill, too. Nick Lardis, he's not all that dissimilar from Braden Yeager, who went 14th overall. I mean, he scored more than him in the second half. He was one of the best goal scorers in the entire CHL. Super fast. He can really rip it. Playmaking improve throughout the year. I like that. And of course, I got to give a shout out to 2 of my favorite players in this draft, Callum Lind, who is just the nastiest dude ever. And if he can add some weight to that 150-pound frame, he's going to be terrifying to play against. And Matthew Mania, best name in the draft. He plays unhinged hockey, just activating constantly, fearless, never shies away from creating an opportunity, and his defense has improved a lot. So I'd be looking out for those guys.
Matthew Mania deserves to be a first overall pick by name alone.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the fact that he's also an unhinged player and lives up to
Yeah.
the name, that's the greatest. The Canadiens need to find a way to get Matthew Mania. That will actually save the draft.
I was actually surprised, Ethan. I thought he would have gotten some consideration. Actually, if the Habs were at 31, I'm pretty sure would have considered it. Hey, I just want to point out here, Hockey the Beast, joined our chat, and they, I don't know your gender, provided links for so many games. I just want to thank you. Because Hockey the Beast was like the ultimate source for streams for so long, unless you're a different one. But everyone in the NHL that's ever watched a game has a 1-point watch one of the Hockey the Beast streams. So cheers, shout out. Thank you very much.
And friend of the show, Ian Boisvert, mentioned that in 2019, the broadcast compared Cole Caulfield to Leo Messi, which, I kind of love that comparison. I don't think it's applicable at all. But I guess it is in terms of like Caulfield just finds the spots. But like, man, if you watch Leo Messi, and for whatever reason, my TikTok For You page for the last several weeks has just been like Leo Messi highlights over and over again. I don't know if there's any hockey
Because he
players
just
ever
signed with
fought through.
Inter,
Probably
United States.
But just, man, the way that guy fights through traffic, I don't think there's ever been an NHL player that compares to that.
Mario Lemieux, actually, is the
Maybe.
guy that would drag people.
Yeah, that's true. But he wasn't small like that, right? Like,
No.
you see the tackle.
No, he was
fights
not.
through, like, Lemieux was a tank, right? So Messi's just like...
Compare Reinbacher to a soccer player. Go ahead.
No, let's keep it in Mitch's wheelhouse. Which mountain climber is most like David Reinbacher?
Okay, you have to understand. I don't know anything about these people.
Fair enough.
You know more people in that sport than I do.
Absolutely. Hey, and I'll just say this: I'm a big Messi fan, and I know there's people are gonna ask. His name is Pinaldo. That's Cristiano Pinaldo. Okay, I'm going on the record saying penalties only. He's a very good player, but I mean he's no Messi. He's no Messi.
No, nobody is Messi.
Bergkamp. Yeah, I mean, Henry was.
Henry was great.
No,
But Messi's like
Argentina put them over the top, and that's obviously what we came here to talk about. Okay, final thoughts as we're going out. I'll leave it to you, and we'll get a final thought from
yeah,
from you,
for
Mitch.
sure. Kay asks, Andrew, are you a TikTok girly now? I've been a TikTok girly for a long time. That's how I get through bedtimes with my kids. Is I sit in the chair while they refuse to sleep and scroll through TikTok.
My final take is Charlie Arsenault, who's part of SDPN Game Over, wrote the best tweet today. Dvorsky is what hockey bros call it when their parents split up.
Oh man, bro, we're getting a Dvorsky. Greatest tweet of the night, easily maybe the year. So Charlie Arsenault from Game Over Ottawa. Kudos to you on that. Yeah, I think we've covered everything. I think obviously there's not much to talk about for the Canadiens outside of Reinbacher in this first round. They didn't really do much. It was him and Newhook. Right?
But someone asked, and we covered this at the beginning. He does okay. Here's the deal with this contract. He signed an extension with Cloton, so he wants to stay there and get his business degree, which I actually love. But since he was drafted out of Europe in the first round, it's kind of like Philippe Méchard. He can play in the AHL. He can play in the NHL. Or they can actually organize something in junior. Does anyone own Reinbacher's rights?
In junior? That is a good question. But I do know the website for this, www.eliteprospects.com. You find David Reinbacher, you scroll all the way down to the bottom, and his rights are owned by the Sarnia Sting. Look at that. Not bad.
No, don't go to Sarnia. No, absolutely not.
But junior hockey shouldn't be an option for him.
Exactly.
I don't like the fit with him in junior.
No. Absolutely. I will. This is, I think, my final thoughts on combining last draft and this draft and like the way the last few years has gone. I think you can look at this Hughes Gorton regime, and overall, I think the moves have been pretty solid.
Yeah.
It's not the same as when Bergevin took over, and I know that Marc made this argument on a demo that we recorded a while ago, saying like the positivity was the same. It wasn't. It wasn't the same. And I can go back on Eyes on the Prize right now and look at articles that I wrote.
Oh, I agree.
When it wasn't the same.
No,
it wasn't the same, because the first thing he did was hire Michel Therrien, and people hated that for good reason, because he sucks. Yeah. And then he went out and signed Brennan Prust, Travis Moen, Frankie Bouillon, Colby Armstrong. All the focus was on the wrong shit. For the most part, the focus has been on the right things for Kent Hughes, but he's also had an easier job because it's been the teardown, right? Teardown is harder than the build. So I think you look at these.
Other way around.
Yeah, teardown is easier than the build. You look at these last two drafts, and I think what I get the feeling of with this Canadiens management group is they feel like they're the smartest people in the room.
That's a good point.
That may very well be true. They may prove everyone who just like criticizes them wrong. But if you think you're the smartest in the room and you act on that, you better fucking be the smartest in the room.
Hey, I love the confidence they have in their own ideology.
Oh yeah, the confidence is great,
but
seriously,
Kent Hughes' tenure as GM will be tied to these two drafts, and it's impossible to get away with it. And if they don't hit, Slafkovsky's still young, but if Reinbacher and Slafkovsky end up being middling, maybe third, second pair, or maybe a third line or second pair, that is a failure.
If Slafkovsky is anything other than the best pick from the 2022 draft, which the odds are that, like, just by the way that draft worked, there were so many competitors for the top 8 spots or whatever. That's probably not going to happen. It's a bad look, right? Like, you have a first overall pick. At some point, the context doesn't matter. You need results. And if Slafkovsky isn't that guy from that draft, it's bad. right? There's no way
I
around
mean,
that.
I think even if Slavkovsky becomes like a 30-goal power forward, people will
That'd
be
be
okay
good,
with it,
but
right? Because of the uncertainty in COVID and all that.
who did you have last year? I actually had Cooley, Nemec, Jiricek, like all pretty tight at number one. Who did you have last year? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Right, Jurček, Slavkovsky,
Oh yeah,
Cooley, and looking back on it, right at first was not the right choice. He was not good in the OHL this year. It was
he's gonna be a
pretty
good player,
concerning.
but
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just not at the level that you would anticipate a player of that caliber to be
did you
in
watch
the
him in the
OHL.
AHL playoffs with what's it called? It's like the Fire Festival, whatever the Coachella Thunderbirds.
Coachella. Yeah, I haven't gotten there yet, but I was very frustrated with watching him in the OHL. Not great. I mean, I know he scored, but he was pretty consistently not the best player on the ice every single night. And I
Okay,
thought Cooley would probably be the guy you'd take first, or
he was.
check at this point.
To me, I saw he was smart, right? And what Adam Dyer mentioned here, one of the themes with the Canadians, which I do like about Kent Hughes and company. I'm not sure if we talked about this. If Martin Lapointe really has a place in this anymore. He's kind of a holdover, and some of the ideas coming out of him are super old school. But intelligence has been one of the number one things. Guys like Beck, right? Obviously, Hudson's really smart too.
Meshar.
Rohr, very very smart guys. It seems to be a little more of a priority now, in drafting guys that can actually process the game at a high level.
Yeah, and certainly, I mean, if you believe in your development system, I know, shoot me, then you need the intelligence there because you want to have guys who can soak up information quickly and translate it into game situations.
Yeah, Galkin says that if Slavkovsky ever got 30, he would need top ice time. Listen, he's not going to play 12 minutes a game forever. Yeah. And if he does, that's a big issue. But
well, I'll say this for Slavkovsky, none of last year was on him. Not a single damn thing. And that's what really. And listen, I've heard a lot of.
You don't think he should have produced more with
Michael Pezzetta and I like Jake Evans there, but that's where offense goes to die. Let's be perfectly honest. And I've heard a lot of this stuff behind the scenes, which I can't divulge for particular reasons, but. There's not a lot about this, and we talked about it, this group that really gets me all that excited. And I don't want to seem like that jaded ex-employee, but from their actions, I think this rebuild, it's really exciting what they're doing, but it kind of slowed down here today. Coming into this draft, you're excited. You could get a franchise-defining guy like Michkov. You could pick a really good guy at 31, 37. Instead, you come out of it with Reinbacher and Newhook. I just don't see the elite value there. That's what really concerns me with the Canadiens is the lack of elite players. And Caulfield's good. Sergachev was the only guy that they've drafted so far that's actually been rated as a star, like officially. Now Suzuki and Caulfield are going to get there. It's just a certain amount of games played. I mean, right?
How long if Sergachev had been the exact same player in Montreal that he's been in Tampa Bay without Victor Hedman, without McDonough insulating him, would we be talking about him as an elite player right now? He's paid like an elite player.
Probably not.
But this is last year was the first year that he was dependent on in the same breath as Hedman.
Yeah, okay.
And that's how many years past his draft years. So, I mean, I think Caulfield's actually ahead of him in terms of, making a high impact. But, yeah.
I can't spill the tea, Claire. Hey, Claire, how's it going? I will say this, which was really hilarious. Okay, so you guys saw last year with Slavkovsky, when Michkov came behind us, and we weren't even rolling, and I was telling the producer, like, go, because we really botched that whole show. But anyways, I had just ended, because our group, the marketing group, really not hockey fans. There's one in there, and she's great. She knows more than me, but the rest, not hockey fans. So I was explaining, I went on a 10-minute tirade why you don't draft Juraj Slavkovsky. And then I get whispered, by the way, that's who we're drafting. So I went live, and all I could do was I just lied about everything I just said. I'm like, he was great in the playoffs, and that's important. He competes hard. That's important. So, when you're paid by a team, take all my analysis from last year and potentiel dans la poubelle. That's the only tea I'm going to spill for now, Claire. But we can get together for some tea, and we can spill some tea as well.
The fact is, they need elite talent.
That's the biggest issue for the Montreal Canadiens is that elite talent, and I'm just worried that you don't get it. Now, listen, what Vegas did this year, and I know you can't replicate it, but there is elite talent to be found for not free, but pennies on the dollar in the NHL, right? We're seeing guys like Marc. What did Mark Stone get traded for? Half a Toblerone and like a gift card for Subway, right? That's who Mark Stone got traded for.
You just got to wait until Tim Stützle wants out of Ottawa. And then you offer them a third-round pick.
I love Tim Stützle. I think
so do I.
He'd be
Ottawa fans think I hate him.
He'd be perfect on the Habs. He's going to be the best value contract in the NHL.
He's absolutely fantastic. But is he also a huge diver?
Oh.
100% he is.
And I love it.
I respect him for it. I respect him for it. People think I hate him. I like him.
Get all the calls.
His pass last year, that like home run pass, long bomb pass in overtime, was like the best pass in the entire NHL last year.
Yeah.
All right, let's wrap things up. Mitch, final thoughts on the Montreal Canadiens and their draft this year. How, on a scale of 1 to 10, how positive are you after this first round?
6, I guess. I think you added a great talent in Reinbacher. You took a decent swing in Newhook, and there's a chance that your 31st and 37th won't even become NHL players anyway. So yeah, I think it comes down to they could have added elite talent. I would rather miss on Michkov than I would hit on Reinbacher, just given the situation, process and so on. But that's not to say that it's a bad decision or that Reinbacher sucks. He doesn't. He's going to be good. He's going to play in the NHL, and there's real home run potential with him for sure. So yeah, I think tomorrow will really if they do what they did in 2022, going for upside, you get right back to being confident about their process again.
It'll be difficult given that's the issue, right? Is that you don't have your second either? Because where did the second go? Was that part of Dvorak?
No, yeah, no, it was part of the Newhook deal. First and second.
Yeah, but didn't they have another? Oh no! I'm thinking next year. Sorry about that.
But I think that's we're done. That's fair. That's pretty much it.
Cheers to everyone that took time to watch us. Honestly, we love it. Now you go check out Mitch Brown on Twitter and Elite Prospects. Honestly. And I'm not just saying this.
Go to Elite Prospects on YouTube. The reels they have there.
Yeah. You work with our buddy David Saint Louis. We used to all work at Eyes and the Proudies. But man, I'm so happy to see someone value your work, because we didn't. No. But honestly, man, you're quickly developing into your development path has been very encouraging. And honestly, man, it's just great to see you become just the person that people go to for that in-depth knowledge. So man, congratulations, and follow him on Twitter. And
at Mitch L. Brown.
Yeah. He's one of the ones that I know by heart. Because when I want to sound smart about projects, I'm like, let's go see what Mitch and David said. So thank you for making me seem a little bit less of an idiot. I appreciate that.
I appreciate you. Thank you for the kind words. And yes, go check out our YouTube page. We actually have a video on David Reinbacher that is probably getting lots of views right now. It's worth watching. David breaks down his game extremely well. And then you can also check out our Matvey Michkov video, maybe our Zach Benson video too, get familiar with those guys.
Yeah.
So I would greatly appreciate that. And if you're still not in the know, our draft guide is available. It comes with an EP premium subscription, $12 a month. So check that out. Greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, and I believe that David Reinbacher video is called David Reinbacher is the best defenseman. Why he's the best defenseman in the draft, right? So we can end on that positive note. Thank you, absolutely everyone in the chat. Honestly, vous êtes les meilleurs. Je vous apprécie tous. Sérieux.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us here tonight. It's great to be back with everyone talking hockey.
I love this.
We'll be back sometime in the summer, probably. We'll do something.
We have some things in the works.
We do.
We'll see. Yeah.
Can't talk in detail about that, but if somebody asked earlier if there's going to be a July 1st stream, I believe the SDP guys are going to do that. Steve is full-time with the company now. Adam is full-time with the company now. Jesse's been full-time for a while, so they'll probably do that. I don't know how much the Game Over crew is going to be involved there. I'll check in with it, but it's only a couple days out, so I'm guessing probably not much. But everyone loves Steve and Adam and Jesse, so check them out. Thanks so much to Mitch for joining us here. Thanks everyone for joining us in the chat and watching on
Claire. Bye, Claire.
Thanks to Marc for coming over to my house and watching the draft by himself while I did bedtime with the two kids for 2 hours. And thanks to my wife for putting up with it. All right.
That's the big one. Thanks to his wife for just accepting. No, I'm just joking.
Anyway, thanks everyone. We'll see you next time, whenever that may be.
Salut.
Game over! Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.
Yeah, no problem. That was fun. They had drafts where they took upside. That I'll